Before I get started, I just want to say thank you to all of the new people who have started to follow my channel and subscribe. I had my last video that was it was 2 episodes ago, I think now. The one that was all about how I use Fresco and like setting up files and stuff, like my 5 tips. That video got a lot more traction than any of my others have in the past. And yeah, it was just like really nice feeling to know that like something like that people liked and found useful, and all the lovely comments that people have been giving me. Yeah, thank you. Let me know your thoughts on things, because I'm always open to suggestions and changing things up, and also giving you the content that you want to see. So yeah, I just want to really quickly say thank you to everyone. All right, let's get into it. Hello. Hey friend, welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new, welcome. I'm Jeff, and today is another episode where I'm going to be using my iPad to show you how I pull together designs. In particular, I'm going to be using the Liquify tool in Adobe Fresco. This is a tool that I am always going back to, and it's really helping me to loosen up when it comes to doing my drawings and getting away from that feeling of having to do realism all the time. And yeah, it's been a great tool for me that has allowed me to be more free, enjoy the process. And so I just thought I'd share the process of how I use that tool with you. So ever since I was a kid, I always felt that I couldn't draw realism. Like I couldn't do portraits, I couldn't do faces, I couldn't do bodies. There's that thing about eyes and hands and faces that are just like really hard to do. And I had a very traditional upbringing and exposure to traditional forms of art, you know, pictures of cows, nudes, realism in exhibition spaces. And I never really saw how I could be more playful with that. And so I always struggled. So I'm just going to show you 3 ways that I have slowly eased myself in to doing figures. There's something about drawing people and drawing fashion that I find really fun. And I'm really glad that over the past about 3 years, I have actively started to chip away at this fear and getting more and more comfortable with how a Jeff human looks, or the different variations of how Jeff humans could look in my art. So here are 3 ways that I've been approaching this whole thing of drawing people and figures. So the first way that I approached it was I wanted to create these bean-like characters, or sort of non-humans, and just really explore what poses I really like to draw, like experimenting with faces. I think by taking away from being humans gave me the freedom for things to not necessarily look anatomically correct. So that was a really great entry point. The next thing that I started to do was play around with existing characters that were already within illustrations. So I was going to shows like Dougie and Rugrats and all the shows I watched as a kid. And I did this exercise where I was like, what would Chucky look like if he was now an adult, or Angelica, or Doug? And by using an illustration of a figure that already exists, it kind of gave me a really good framework to play off and to sort of push it in my own direction and do like a Jeffified version of something that already existed. And I found that really great to help get my style a little bit more refined and see what I like to do, and like put my own twist on things. And the other thing, I guess, after that is I kept on getting a bit more confidence, and I was going a lot to like fashion photography or street style photographs where the styling was really elevated, because then that gave me something extra to play off rather than just doing a standard picture of like a face with like no makeup on and really simple hair. I really wanted to do images that were a lot more fun and colorful and gave me things to play with. So yeah, over time it's been this like evolving stages and doing Every sort of 6 months or so, I'd give myself a new challenge of trying a different thing. And it's just taking a lot of years for me to actually build up that confidence, which makes sense, which feels really nice to look back on now, because I remember the very early Bean character drawing Jeff that was... I feel I know I've come such a long way, so that's really good. So they're just it's 3 ways that I've approached it, which could be really helpful for you if that's something that you're wanting to try and explore more of. At this current point, I am not 100% resolved in the style of how I like to draw people. I'm definitely still in a bit of a growing pains part of the process. I think I'm finding that I'm depending on just the mood of the day will determine how I'm drawing, whether I'm doing something that's a bit more textural and rough and sketchy, or if it's a little bit more animated and sugar sweet looking, or if it's got an outline, or if there's no outline. And there's so many different ways that I'm drawing it that I think that's actually okay, because it's giving me a lot more breadth to play with within my style, and it allows, I guess, in future, when this becomes more of my client offerings, like a service where I'm doing more illustrations, I think that's just great, because it gives more clients the chance to tap into me, because I can appeal to so many different types of people. But the thing that I'm still working on is what is my defining signature kind of thing that makes all these styles recognizably me. So at the moment, that's where I'm at. And so I thought what I'd do today is to show you something that is a part of the process, no matter what style I'm doing. And that is when I'm drawing on my iPad and sort of doing the mock-up of the figure and mapping out the shapes and the scale and everything. A tool that I've been using a lot is Liquify. And so I thought what I'd do is show you this picture of myself that I took a few years ago, or someone took of me a few years ago. And I'm going to use that as an example to show you how I use this tool and how it is helping me to get over that hurdle of realism. So I'm going to cross over now to my iPad and let's get into it. So this is a picture of me at an event called Big Thick Energy, which is an amazing group that does these really great events. They're all about body activism and positivity and embracing all of our big, thick, delicious bodies. So this is a backdrop I did for a media wall for them. And this was taken a few years ago. So I'm going to use this as the reference model. So the first thing I'll always do is get my pencil onto sort of a lighter mode. I'm just using a simple sketchy pencil, maybe on 5. And I'm just going to draw in the rough body position in terms of a frame. So that'll be heads, things like that. So if I use the body, the image is overlapping, use it as the reference point to start with. So something simple like that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is to make it a little bit smaller, because then I've got room to expand it out. And the first thing I want to do, so where the Liquify tool is if you go into this transform settings and down the bottom this Liquify. And what I like to do first is to get the bloats, and I make it quite big, the brush, and what that do will pump it out and bloat things out. So I always like to start with the feet, because I like to draw shoes, and usually the heads, because then you can give it much more detail. And I just start to bloat out sections, and it's going to warp some of the body, which I think is really fun and fine and takes it out of that traditional structure of what the body looks like. I will then choose the warp setting at the very top, and so this can essentially pulls it out or pulls it in, whichever way you want to look at it and use it. So what I'll do is then start to think about the parts of the body that I like to exaggerate, and I'll like pull them out. So it can be the feet, the hands, the head. If they've got a really cool bit of jewelry on, I might do that. Play around with just exaggerating all the shapes until I start to fill the frame that I want to work within. So this artwork, I want to make it a portrait format. So I want it to kind of sort of fill all of that. Frame. Shoes, really big. Okay, that's, I think, a really good start. From here, I'm gonna make a copy of it because I think if I go too far, at least I can go back. So duplicate it. And now with this version, I might just go back into transform and just play around with the scale of it. Go back into Liquify again. I think I really like the idea of stretching the arms out and having the arms be this being a really exaggerated part. Okay, from here, I'm going to push it even further. I'm going to cut the body, like the limbs out, and just sort of move them out so they're pulled away from the body a little bit more. So, for instance, like this leg, I like the idea of it being over here. So then it's more of a stance. You can like bend the leg. I usually try to avoid having legs face forward. So they're always pointing to the sides or pointing to the other side or like out or in. That way you can just get like a profile of the shoe itself. Okay, so from here, I'm going to now bring the transparency down really low. I'm going to create a new layer, and now I'm going to draw the artwork I'm going to draw the portrait using this as the framework. So not thinking about the detail, but thinking back to that original reference that I did first that was overlaid over the photo. So doesn't matter that it doesn't necessarily look like me right now. Okay, from here, it feels like I've lost the torso. So I'm gonna just separate the layers a little bit more, like the top part of the body and the bottom part of the body, and just make sure I have that stomach area. Okay, so this is, I'm really happy with how this looks. The fingers are very alien, but I think capturing, when you compare it to the original artwork, let's bring that up. So when I look at these two in comparison, I love that I've been able to keep the frame and the pose that I have, But just by using the Liquify tool, I've been able to really not worry as much about the perfect frame and getting everything 100% right. And I think then this allows me to go off and play around with, you know, maybe there's something that I'm putting around me, like love hearts, or like what's the environment I'm standing in, kind of thing. I think put like rings or something on me, and it could be much more of a focus on jewelry in some way. I think what I'm going to go to do now is just do a more refined sketch of this and then show you the end results, because yeah, this video is not necessarily about the end result, it's more about showing you that process of playing with the Liquify tool. So I'll be back soon with a more refined version of this. Hello, I'm back, and it's now a few days on from when I did that last little live drawing session. After that, I went and spent the rest of the afternoon drawing. I let it creep into the night, and I did it whilst I was watching a competition cooking show, because that is something that I love, is a cooking show that's also reality TV. I'm in. And then I decided to just finish it off the next morning over maybe about 2-hour window. So I really didn't want to spend a heap of time on this artwork, because I knew that this video was going to be more focused on showing the Liquify tool and how I use that, and that was the main focus. So yeah, I finished the artwork and I'll put it somewhere here on the screen. It's super cute. I ended up printing it off at my studio because I just wanted to see what it would look like printed, and I'm really happy with the way that it looks. The biggest, I guess, loves that I have is the pattern shirt. I used the mask tool to create the silhouette of the shirt, and then I just went to town with the pattern and played around with that. I thought that was really successful. I really love the shoes, but that's no surprise because I just love drawing shoes so much. And I'm really loving the two oversized flowers as well. I just wanted to add something else in the picture that brought me into my like Jeff world, and I wanted to use this drawing as a way to sort of experiment with other textures in Fresco and a different way of drawing flowers in more of a profile shot rather than like opened up. So yeah, I really do love the finished work, which is awesome. The things that I really struggled with, there was two main things. There's one is like the gap between, when you do this, the little gap that is between like my neck and my hands just here. I really struggled trying to work out what to do with that, because there just wasn't a lot of room to either draw more chest hair or beard or shadow or do shirt. So I just had to keep on playing around with that, and eventually I just kind of like closed it up and just tried to ignore it. And then the second part that I kind of struggled with was the hands. So you'll notice in the photo that my hands are much more like side profile, and you don't really get to see that much of them. And the beauty of coming to this struggle in this exercise is that by going back to the Liquify tool and having my hands flat and opened up like this, it obviously doesn't read as realism, but you get the idea of what I'm doing. And that's at essence what I was really wanting to show you, is that by breaking away from realism, I was able to come up with a solution that I really loved that is still successful. And then I guess in general, when you compare the artwork to the photograph, I think that the artwork is obviously an impression of the photograph. So, you know, it's not realism. It's also, I think it captures the vibe of like the mood of what I was doing, trying to be cute, and like the essence of the image, which I think is what a reference image should be, is that I'd never really want to recreate the reference image. I want to use that as a starting point. So I think it does that really successfully. I think it captures the pose quite well. It's not necessarily as exaggerated as the first one, or like relying on the hip, but I think it still works. And I've just made all my limbs a lot bigger and thicker and given myself more surface area to work with. The more that I think about it in this video, the more I'm realizing that if you give yourself surface area to work with, you're going to be more playful in itself because there's more options. So if I was to draw the hands really small and fiddly, I'm more likely to be meticulous and sort of pulling myself back into realism. But yeah, by making all the limbs like thicker, bigger, longer, more angular, exaggerated, I'm already giving myself permission to like play and do things. So yeah, I think the Liquify tool has really helped me. And if you look at, that's what I was going to say. If you look at, I'll put up here like a timeline of sort of like the progress shots, and you'll see that it obviously like evolves and goes to like the nth degree, and then I rein it back in a little bit more, and then it kind of like ebbs and flows. But after sort of the second or third stage of using the Liquify tool and really pushing it out, I don't necessarily in my process go back to the reference image a whole lot to replicate. I use it to sort of understand, you know, what is the texture of the jeans, or what is the texture of the shirt, or if I want to fix up the position of the leg, yes. But I really am not sort of going back to it as much. I kind of just go with the stage that I'm at in this drawing, what would make this sketch look the best. And so I think that is something that the Liquify tool has helped me to do, is to reference point, make a new sort of starting point, blow it out to the nth degree, and then rely on my creative skills to use that to come up with a final result that I'm really happy with, that still captures the essence of the reference image in some way, but doesn't try and replicate it completely. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is why I love play so much in my creative process. This is why I'm always trying to give myself new creative prompts and trialing new things and embracing my inner child when making, is because with reflection, I'm always learning new things about the way that I like to work and what is best for me to enjoy the process. Hopefully you really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed putting it together, and I mean, now I have a nice little self-portrait that I don't know if I'm going to do anything with it, but at least it's now here and I look a little bit narcissistic having it sitting on my desk. If you have any ideas of anything you'd like to see from me in future episodes, whether it's something I do on my iPad, maybe it's something that I'm making in the studio, questions you have, understanding ways that I do things within my business, whatever, just send me a message, put it in the comments. Just let me know. I'm always happy to really evolve this and make this more of like a chat, a dialogue, rather than just like me presenting things to you. And I love that people are starting to do that already, and I feel like I'm I feel like I'm getting much more traction with each episode, and more people discovering the channel, which is great. Be sure to, if you're on Instagram, add me, say hello, let me see what kind of work you do. And with that, I'm gonna love you and leave you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.